Hello and welcome back to the show. Today we are reviewing Everton versus Sheffield. It resulted in a 2-2 draw. It was a pretty enthralling clash. Obviously, momentum swung both ways at different stages of the game. We saved ourselves, should I say Jordan Pickford saved ourselves from losing a vital point that could come in clutch at the end of the season. Let's just get into the review. We kick things off with talking about the player of the game, and my player of the game, like many other people would say, is Beto. He had an exceptional performance today. There were a few other contributors that could have made their case, but he was doing just about everything that you could have asked for from a guy who's lone up top, needs to hold up play. He was doing exactly that and then some. His strength is unbelievable. Like, Sheffield defenders are trying to bring him down and he's just staying upright and maneuvering his body in such a way that defenders don't have a chance of getting to the ball. It's quite crazy to see. Like, there were a couple times where there would be a lofted ball towards him and he would just, let the ball go. He would leave a path for it to roll where he could then use his long strides. He was happy to take a heavy touch if it would allow him to capitalize on those long strides, and it happened on quite a few occasions. He also allowed the play to continue for our second goal. He just kept things moving. You got to keep things unpredictable. You can't allow Sheffield defenders to set up, and that's where the goal arose. So look, I think if he can just produce what he did today at a similar standard, something like that for the majority of the season and stay healthy, well, then we're going to exceed those 34 goals that we scored last season with ease, I would imagine. Obviously, like many occasions this season, we have let a few opportunities go to waste. Danjuma was the master of doing that today. There was an early opportunity where it was a 4-on-2 and he decided not to pass. He just simply had to roll it to one of Beto or Ghana and there is a shot on. That's how Sheffield got their goal. You look at how they scored theirs and McBurney lays it off to Archer and he's able to get a good look. If Danjuma just passes it to Beto, then we're probably seeing at least a shot on target, maybe a score. You don't really know until you actually take that shot, but we didn't take that chance, and Danjuma obviously found out the hard way, and Everton also found out the hard way by only getting the 1 point as opposed to 3. But we far too often turn away from beneficial runs. Like, we are scared to make a playable pass. Sometimes there'll be tight gaps we can pierce. And a player who could do that, who's stuck on the right-hand side, is James Garner. But unfortunately, he's looking a bit of a liability on the right-hand side, and Patterson sort of amplifies that problem a little bit more. Or you could, interchange those two. We need someone that can play these passes. I mean, scoring 2 goals is great, but we could have easily scored 4 or 5 if, we actually looked up and didn't turn our backs and go backwards, making the safe pass. Heck, we find ourselves in trouble when we're playing the safe pass. So we should be taking these risks higher up the pitch because we're playing too passive and are still turning it over anyway, and it's just easy pickings for the opposition. So that's something we need to work on. We don't do all those short passes in training for nothing. Like, we need to actually put them to use. I mean, I'm not going to delve into the Sheffield goals too much. I mean, apart from the fact that on every point of contact with the ball, Sheffield were not pressured whatsoever. I'm talking about the first goal, of course. It was pretty diabolical. I mean, all the time in the world to cross it in, take a touch, pass it off, get the shot off, and Pickford couldn't do anything about it. As for the second, that is like FIFA scripting at its finest. I do not understand how we keep getting done in by just unlucky shit. Like, that is, you cannot write that. That was comical. I mean, for a depressed Everton supporter like me, if that can make me laugh, then we've reached a certain point. But, I mean, Pickford, unbelievable 2 saves at the end. He knocked one away with his head and he was able to deflect one off the bar in succession. We could have been going home with a far worse result, a far worse outcome, but it's good to see that we've, come away with something. And it is something that we can use as a starting point for improvement. Like, we can see that we can score goals. Now that confidence will probably lift a little bit. We know we've got a capable striker up front and with reinforcements to return as well. So there's got to be faith in the team that they can get the job done. We've got a really tough fixture against Arsenal, but there are going to be some inclusions which can really help contribute to what we're trying to achieve here. I do want to mention Nathan Patterson, though, because we talk about this kind of resolve that the team needs, the players need within the team. We've had our fair share of issues. There's been moments where we could have easily gone back into our shell because of the lack of success in what we're experiencing. Nathan Patterson's crossing has not been it this season. Quite a few occasions. He was caught out for the second goal. If we talk about what he's doing in open play, the crosses are just way too shallow or they're way too deep. There's no sweet spot with Nathan Patterson, but I tell you what, the persistence, the ability to not be deterred by that and keep having that confidence in your attacking play, that's such an important thing for a young player, because it's very easy to get into a rut because the mentality isn't as stable and strong. The goal doesn't come about if Patterson doesn't run that far forward, if he's reserved. Like, if he saw those crosses weren't working and he decided to take a step back, well, then, we wouldn't have another goal. We would have been going away empty-handed. Credit to him. The cross was sublime and the finish was actually on point for the first time this season. I mean, we can't say it enough. I'm used to saying that shot by Danjuma from point-blank range is hitting the post or the crossbar or going over the top. Do think we should have capitalized a little bit more on the momentum we had, especially in that early portion of the second half. Seemed like we were really on top, and we seemed to just take a bit of a step back. I think probably the fear of conceding after the previous two 1-0 losses at the hands of Fulham and Wolves, those goals have come about at a later stage of the game. So I think we were trying to execute damage control in the sense that we didn't want to open the door for a period of lapse, if you know what I'm saying, because that is way too common amongst the Everton team. Like, there's way too many players prone to that. So I think it was the smart idea, but I think of all games to, actually have a crack, Sheffield was probably one of the games you need to do that. Now, I do think we need to brush over the defensive performances between the two centre-halves. Jared Branthwaite, yet again assured. He just looks right in his element. He never seemed to feel uncomfortable, whether there were quicker players running at him or whether there was an aerial ball he had to contest. He was always onto it, and he never really lost one of those aerial battles. As for James Tarkowski, he didn't have a great start, didn't really do much to try stop the second goal. He did hold him up, but he did also allow him to, obviously we're talking about Archer, he allowed him to sort of open up a little bit and have the luxury of being able to favour the right side. So that's something you could criticise, but that block in the last 15 or so minutes where he got cleaned up in the head by a rocket of a shot, that is seriously courageous, and he just got up as if nothing had happened. And he wanted to get back out there, but they forced him off, and then obviously he got subbed out. You don't want to run the risk of playing one less centre-half when the ball is right within that vicinity. So credit to him. On one hand, you could say that his mare for the second goal was responsible for us losing 2 points. You could also say that his block would have prevented us from losing the point we obtained on game day today. And let's just talk about the refs before we finish off. I don't know what they were thinking with the extension of time to 98 minutes when there was only +6 on the stoppage time board. I don't really know where that arises from. Maybe the Tarkowski incident, but even then, I don't think that took 2 minutes off the clock, that stoppage. So that was a bit questionable. It sort of seemed like they wanted them to win. But then you also talk about some of the calls. Jared Branthwaite, I mean, he got a yellow card for getting the ball and then taking out the body. So you could argue a case for that. Doucoure's gotten a yellow for nudging a player off the ball, and I thought that was a fair use of the body. Then you've got like the use of the spray at the free kick. That was constantly altered. Players were coming forward. Ashley Young was trying to send him back. The umpire, the referee, brought him back forward. All this random shit. The penalty, apparently looking at the rule book, if you grab someone outside of the penalty box and then are still holding on when they enter the box, that's a penalty. It wasn't given, obviously, because we're Everton Football Club. Like, just some poor decision-making, just generally speaking. I think you can make the case for that being the case on both sides. So it's not exclusive to us, but I just thought I'd point it out because it seemed like it could have had a very large bearing of the game with, you know, that shot in the dying stages of the game. So that'll do it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We are back next week for, well, not next week, the week after, when the international break is all said and done. We play Arsenal. It's going to be an absolutely, well, difficult game to play, but we always seem to rock up against big teams and put up a fight. So let's hope that Deitch has some tactics in store like he did in the corresponding fixture last year. Thank you. We'll see you soon, and bye for now.